And again, if you feel like supporting, there's a QR code on top right for the download. Please do check out Marvel Strike Force. Shameless plug about the sponsored stream that we are having, but it is honestly a very, very cool game. Again, I'll talk a lot more about it later, but let's get on into it. It's in the bottom right-hand corner from Alpha X. It is the one, the only, the original classic. He is the real Slim Shady, as in the top left, from Shopify Rebellion. A player who it felt like, was in great form for Katowice, not quite able to, I think, get as far as some people thought he could have, or probably he even wanted to. It is Byun. And that is a very early probe here from Classic. Is this just to scout, or is it to hide? It is just to scout, as Classic is making sure that Byun isn't doing any shenanigans or cheesing, which honestly, is valid, but it's something where I do feel like Byun does not cheese a lot in TVP. That is not really what he does in this matchup. He very much plays it standard. Byun, I think right now his favorite, or the build that I've seen him go the most often, is the barracks into very quick factory, into second barracks, and then starport. It is usually, I think, how Byun has been doing it. We'll go for the CC first in this game, but we'll have the factory follow up after this reactor. So, yeah, there's a few ways that Byun usually handles it. I think, and one of the things that you have to give credit to Byun for is his build diversity. Byun has a lot of builds that he can use and use well. He has a lot of different openings that he can use and use very, very well. So examples of it that we might see in this series even are very much so something like the barracks into reactor, into immediately 2 Reapers, and then the fast factory off of that, or into then 3 racks. Another one that Byun does, is, and then we're seeing this here, is just the straight up 2 or 3 racks. Byun just sometimes does that, as we do have the 3 racks on the way. This is, honestly, it's kind of his favorite build. Not even gonna lie. It's kind of his favorite build to do. And a lot of times, we do see Byun kind of go for this. And it allows him to apply a lot of pressure. It allows him to really kind of get on the map and to get active. And so we'll see how it works out. It is a Stargate from Classic, so we're going to be set Classic, just kind of going for what appears to be a pretty regular build order. Oracle first is, of course, going to be used for the harassment, try and get some damage. We are going to see Byun getting up his stim, combat shield shortly to follow. Which means you're not going to have a factory for a while, and that's really the kind of the sacrifice that you make with the 3 racks. Is you're not going to have tech. You're not going to be going into anything like an early factory or a Widow Mine drop. That is all saved for later. Instead, you're getting a lot of Marines, and you'll be able to apply that pressure with, and you'll be able to get that tech later. In return, you get a lot of bio, and you can apply a lot of pressure on the map if you so choose. As these first few Marines are going to be kept in the main and in the natural, so there's really not a chance that this Oracle gets damage done. Byun actually with a really good split of units here. And if Classic dives in, might not be expecting that much damage, as the Oracle's already so low. And Byun, Byun, almost catches it. That would have been a huge catch had he been able to get it, but not losing any workers as well is already so good for Byun, as the stimming combat shields are going to be finishing up right around 445 to 430, and so he's moving out across the map. And Classic actually misses this. Classic doesn't see the move out, and that's actually massive. What units are there at home? It's 3 Adepts and a Sentry. There is going to be an Immortal out, but an Immortal versus Bio, that's not really a good fight. Singular shield battery available at the top of this ramp. The Immortal is here. Is Byun going to go for it? Has Stim. Has the combat shields. Did lose 4 workers at home, but here we go. Stim on up. And immediately going to try and snipe down the Sentry. Is able to do so. Shield battery is now under fire because it's just a bit too far forward. As Warpins come through, and the Classic does have enough to hold this. Did not try and take a super greedy third base Of course, recognize what this build was. Is now going to move out that probe. So scout out that the units are still here. So that will be... The third base will be slowed down a little bit, as this is a bit aggressive here from Classic. It's still Stim. Bio can still get so much work done, as immediately the focus fire onto the 3 Adepts. Stalker as well, getting low. Another probe going to go down. The Sentry as well, Byun. Oh, that was dirty. Loses a lot for it, but actually gets a decent amount of value for units that could have just died straight up had he not microed it any better. Snags all the Adepts, a Stalker and a Sentry, as well as the 2 Workers, as this Oracle is still getting so much value done, actually. 7 kills on that. And still alive, so Classic will still have this Oracle available. He'll still be able to use it for Revelations to get that scouting information. Concussive Shell is on the way, though. Medevacs are now in production, as the factory and the starport have been completed for Byun. He's actually going to look for another push out. I'm not sure that that's going to quite be the call. Colossus are already on the map. The second one is on the way. Extended Thermal Lance also into the production tab. As this third base for Classic, it's going to be hard for Byun to really contest it. Tanks are on the way. Where is the third CC for Byun is the question. Because you can survive on 2 base pressure for a while as the Terran, but there does reach a point where it becomes almost unsustainable. As Byun is just rallying across the map right now, has 2 medevacs loaded up. He's actually going to send these straight towards the main. The pylon is going to scout it out, but there's just no units that are going to be available to respond. You also have to, you also have to deal with these units that are on this bottom side of the map, and actually they can come for a surround on these Colossus. But Byun is just going to try and get on out, snipe a pylon. I don't think there's going to be much else value he can get. There's a small group of units going to try and stim on in. Gets the Oracle. Just going to move on out. Byun not committing to anything just yet. These medevacs actually still hanging out here. Could try and dive back into that main base eventually, but the third base is on location. Byun will eventually be able to get his economy back in order, as immediately to pick up. And ooh, Byun here is also going to move out. Immediately, he gets the recall. The Colossus on the high ground. Byun can set up the tank. This is actually massive for Byun. Doesn't lose any units to the drop. Is going to try and stim down now the third base. Immediately, shield battery overcharges pop. I'm not sure it's not in range of the Nexus. As the tanks are continuing to fire, where are the Colossus? They're not able to come on in yet and try and deal with this because the drops are still in the main. As Byun is getting so much damage done, the Immortal falls. The Stalkers are going to fall shortly after the shield battery is not able to do enough work. The 3 Colossus are just trying to clean up these drops, and that's it. As Byun just gets so much value, continuing to drop in the main and just be annoying. Now the probes are going to have to be pulled. The warp in is not quite enough, but the pickup to make sure that Byun doesn't lose any units. As this tank continuing to shell away, these 3 Colossus, the only thing that Classic had to try and save this game. But the Nexus should go down. All it takes is a stim forward here from Byun. A drop on top of the Colossus only loses a single Marauder. Oh. Byun looking on point right now. So the third base has to be reestablished, but Classic is so far behind now. Continued tank production. Vikings now on the way. There's enough medevacs to heal up this entire army. Byun is working on his +1/+1. That was incredible double-pronged pressure from Byun. I mean, handling both fronts as perfectly as he could. As the Viking production is going to continue, Disruptors are on the way for Classic, and Disruptors are a unit that can help him try and get back into this game, but it might, I don't know if you really can. There's just so much to work with here for Byun. And for Classic, I mean, you have +1, you have the Colossus. Right now you're only sitting at 2 though. Disruptor's really not that useful, and you're trying to take 2 Nexuses, 2 more bases. You're trying to expand. Meanwhile, Byun's hitting critical mass. 96 army supply, a bunch of tanks, a bunch of Vikings. The Disruptor shot goes out to zone away the army, but that's it. It just zones away the army. And honestly, Byun, he could probably lift off and go into the main here if he wanted to. Can also just stim down Disruptor. There's absolutely nothing stopping him from doing that. As Void Rays are out, going to try and focus down these Vikings. Classic is actually taking this fight, and the Colossus are getting a decent amount of damage done, but it's just the Marauders left, and the Marauders absolutely shred through the rest of this army. The Charge Lots, though, going to try and dive on top of it. But even with that, when you're trading, if you're ahead, if you're trading evenly, then that is absolutely worthwhile because you can replenish, your opponent can't. Disruptor shot, great pickups to dodge. And that's going to be GG. Byun takes a convincing game number 1. From Alpha X, it is Classic. And that is a very early probe. And this one is actually headed across the map. Bottom left, are you ready? This looks like potentially could be a Max Pax coming through. Will he be able to defend it? From Shopify Rebellion, it is Byun. Okay, maybe not a Max Pax. Maybe just an extremely early probe scout here is not able to slow down the barracks. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. I feel like when you go for that early probe scout, you are trying to slow down the barracks. You actually get there right before it started, and so try and, you know, get it off location, something like that, but does not work out. The probe is just going to continue to harass this. Does actually get 2 SCVs quite low, and Byun is going to have to pull away an SCV there. Okay. Let's not get the snipe. He's going to come back up, though. And Byun, just doing Byun things. Very good denial of the probe. Make sure that nothing's going to happen so that he loses any early workers. No, the probe harass not really going to be fruitful here for Classic. Although he should be able to also slow down this this command center from being placed down. The 2 SCVs are, of course, very good at pushing this back on their own. Get a lot of damage through, and again, the early probe not really doing a lot there for Classic. You pull a probe, I mean, again, very, very early on, but we'll see. Of course, it did also let Classic know, hey, there's no cheese coming out, but again, if you watch a lot of Byun games recently, especially, it does feel like cheese in TVP is something that he has kind of zoned out of his playstyle from being a consistent threat. It's a situation where you always have to consider it, but against Byun, I think you can kind of expect him to at least do a barracks at home. As the probe, I'm sorry, you have failed your cause. That being said, though, Concussive Shell is on the way, and guess what? It is Marauders. That is the unit of choice here for Byun. He's actually going to be going for a much earlier attack than before. This is the Concussive Shell build. It's one that when you time it up with the 3 racks, actually is so powerful because you don't really need combat shields. You're really actually relying on the damage that these Marauders get done. And look at this, you can just catch out an Adept. Classic just has to walk away, almost loses it, but can't commit that Adept forward. And now we're going to have the 3 racks coming through. It is going to be just the regular opening here from Classic. Not really doing anything too crazy. Stim pack on the way. Again, combat shield's not started just yet because really what's going to happen is that the Concussive Shell Marauders are going to get a lot of the value for the Terran player in this situation. As soon as you push across the map, if there are Stalkers, well, those Stalkers are going to die. That's just kind of how it works. As +1 is on the way, and this Oracle is going to try and dive on in. Not a lot of Marines available here, so this should... Ooh, misclick. Doesn't get the second SCV. There's a missile turret already in the main base. Just going to try and harass, but it's quite low. And now you really can't push in with this Oracle until those shields are regenerated. Again, I'm not sure how this is going to work out here. For Classic, he just doesn't have a lot to work with. It's 3 Adepts, an Oracle, a Sentry, and you know, he's going to be getting an Immortal. It's... If Byun hits this timing, it feels like this is going to be a whole lot stronger. The Marauders, of course, a lot better at chewing through the Sentry and the Immortals. Classic. Will he be ready for it? That's a shield battery at the front once again, and the shield battery, it can be sniped if you're not ready for this. As Byun already has a few low Marines, but is going to push out. 3 Adepts are available. Those, of course, can one-shot the Marines if the focus fire happens right, but here's the angle. Byun doesn't want to commit into it. That means the Classic should be able to take this third base. Oh! The Stasis Ward. So much value there for Classic. As Byun was focusing it down, but was not able to kill it fast enough with just 2 Marines. Oh, it's Byun continuing to try and find this angle, but the 2 Immortals and the Force Field, enough to get a kill onto the singular Marauder. As, oh, Byun, that's so, oh no! That's so many idle workers right now for Byun. There we go, finally he's going to get them back to working, but that one Stasis Ward actually just slows down Byun so much, and that means that this third base for Classic is going to go up really without any trouble. Colossus are now on the way once again, but gotta say, this situation for Classic, the position in this game is so much better than the last one. I mean, Byun hasn't been able to find really damage with his early Marines. He hasn't been able to knock down the army count. And so, suddenly that means subsequent attacks are just a lot weaker. There's not really a lot you're going to be able to do to really try and find a timing attack that's not on even ground, as the second Colossus is going to be popping out. I love this move. So, for those of you that don't know, the Stasis Ward actually lasts for a long time. I think it's something like 2 minutes, if not longer. And so you can actually delay command centers from landing on location for a huge amount of time if the Terran is not paying attention. And that's what Classic is going to be playing on, as Byun is trying to move on out. This is a double drop being set up on one side, and then Marines and Marauders on the other. Classic, though, has already split his units. We saw that the third Colossus here is being rallied towards the main base. What is there? Colossus, more Stalkers, and... or sorry, the second Colossus is being rallied there. As Focus Fire on the +1, though, is actually a pretty big move. That's a great snipe there for Byun. He's going to slow down the +1 attack of the Protoss. Mind you, he already has his +1. He's working on +1 armor as well. As Byun just trying to maintain map control right now. As the Forge is being rebuilt, Blink on the way for Classic. Templar Archives as well for the High Templars. As a small group of units here going to make their way towards the natural. Instead, just going to try and, knock down that pylon. But again, Classic splitting his army very, very well means that Byun is just going to get up his third base, sitting actually at 62 workers right now. Byun's economy is really, really solid. And we should be seeing these, more barracks being added on. It's an early Ghost Academy here. So, Byun will have access to those ghosts quite soon, as normally don't do this, but thank you so much for the gifted subs. Again, anything that you guys do to support the channel will go straight to more tournaments. Other stuff that you can do, of course, if you want to check out Marvel Strike Force, as I said, scan that code. That will also support us so much, and download the game, play it a little bit, but thank you so much for the support. As Byun right now continuing to macro up 3 ghosts at a time on the way. Tanks and Vikings getting up a very tech-intensive army. And honestly, usually what you see is that it's usually the Protoss that is going into just your, is this going Colossus, High Templar? Byun's matching that. Tanks, Vikings, Ghosts. He's saying, listen, I can also build a very, very technical army. And honestly, it counters exactly what Classic is going for. Right now, you're going for Colossus, and there are tanks to zone him out. Tanks to zone out the High Templar. Ghosts as well for the EMPs. This army that Byun is building is absolutely terrifying, as 3 more barracks are coming down to go up to the magic number of 8. Currently, just sitting at that. We should eventually then see a choice of whether it's going to be a second starport or a second factory. As Byun is building that 4th command center, will eventually float it onto location. Classic does have his 4th already established, as it is the second starport coming down here for Byun, who's not started up 2-2. Byun is right now just working with 1-1, a very powerful army that can fight, and that's about it. It can fight really, really well. But we are going to eventually see that armory being put down and the engineering bay. It's just these players, both of them actually, really focusing on their army composition. The upgrades right now are actually kind of a non-factor. It's 1-1 versus 1-1. That's it. It is really the composition and the control that's going to come down to. This Classic is shifting his army over to the right side of the map. Yeah, and he's going to be able to see this. The small group of Bio scouting out the fact that Classic is going to look for an attack. And where are the tanks? Where are the Vikings? The Vikings are finally here, but there's no tanks to really support this army. And that means that this base is not going to go down on location just yet. And this is great news for Classic, because the longer that you can delay the Terran from putting up a base, I mean, the better it's just going to get for you. As hallucination, it's 5 Colossus regardless of that hallucination, but those are some great EMPs. These tanks getting a lot of value. The Storm, not actually that good. The tanks firing away in Classic. You're just fighting into a choke point here, and you do not want to do that. As so much damage goes down to all his units. The splash damage available here from Byun. Classic, I don't think you want to fight into this. You're missing so many shields from your units. I just don't think it is worthwhile as Byun. I'd really like to see him establish his 5th on the other side of the map as a blink forward, but again, there's 3 tanks here. That Storm is very good, though. But Byun is just fighting this straight on up. The Marauders trying to chew through. The Colossus are still alive, but all of the Stalkers fall, and now the Vikings reign supreme. As the Archon's going to be able to zone them away. A singular Colossus left. And not exactly a worthwhile trade for either player. As that CC still floating, it's going to look to be positioned, finally landed down. Byun took quite a bit of damage from that. I mean, again, not being able to get up your base, losing some tanks, losing your ghosts. Byun is going to have to rebuild Classic as well, but 2 Colossus on the way from on the way at a time from Classic. As 2-2 will be finishing up for both these players, the Protoss is just going to have it a little bit faster, working again with that 4-base economy. It's even workers, but of course, that doesn't really matter too much when you have mules available. Ship weapons on the way as well for these Vikings. More ghosts being added. 4 Vikings at a time to deal with this Colossus count. As Byun has finally established his 4th base. But at the same time, Classic has a 5th. Classic just constantly out-expanding his opponent. Byun is going to scout the army movement, though, of Classic, and that is absolutely massive to see. Knows exactly where the Protoss is, what they want to do. 3 Colossus already out. DT Shrine on the way. Classic. Still trying to maneuver around. Is going to be able to kill off this sensor tower, but actually EMP is zoning him away. We'll finally come back with the Blink Stalkers. And right now, still trying to decide what to max out on. Is going to settle on this Bio army. His tanks are in position. That's a 6th base for Classic. There we go. EMPs go down. Some great EMPs, but you have High Templar. Ooh, that Warp Prism almost goes down. These Vikings actually getting so much damage done. The charge lots all go down. Oh my god, these storms from Classic. Absolutely beautiful. High Templar are going to start to be unloaded from the Warp Prism as it is low health. And again, this Viking count is very, very dangerous. Have +1 ship weapons available for it. But +3 is on the way for Classic. He's working on his own ship weapons, more Stargates, a fleet beacon on the way. Disruptors. It's 86 workers right now for Classic. 5 bases looking to go up to 6, and Byun is stuck right now on 4. But look at this money difference. Classic. He's actually waiting to remax onto, I believe, DTs and carriers, as a little bit of cancel stalker is going to be warped in instead. Cancel on half of them, though, as Byun, he's going to look for it, looking for the arm. An EMP on all the High Templar! Oh, Byun is going to split up his army quite well, only loses a single Marauder to the second Disruptor Shrine. He's going to start to chase this down. Byun, the micro, the moves, the decision-making, all the Colossus are going to fall. You don't have time for carriers. As Shield Battery Overcharge is going to start to go down. This Colossus is getting so much value, but does it matter? The charge lots are all dead. And sure, the Vikings go down, but the Bio is still alive. The Shield Battery falls, more EMPs onto the Stalkers, and Byun, with one move, is going to win game number 2. Absolutely beautiful. It's going to be your blue Protoss player, ladies and gentlemen, from Alpha X. It is Classic. And in the bottom right, for the first time this game, he is sending out an early SCV. Is it just for an NG Bay block? Is it for a proxy? Let's see. From Shopify Rebellion, looking to close it out in a swift 3-0, it's Byun. Oh, baby. Proxy barracks from Byun. It should only be the singular barracks with the Reaper production, but if you're Classic, you're on Pride of Altaris. Do you scout for this? I don't think you scout for this. Why would you scout for a proxy? I mean, actually, Classic is scouting for a proxy in the usual locations that a proxy would be placed. But if you don't see one, if you just go, oh, no way. Oh, Classic. Stop it. Stop. He's crazy. He's insane. Of course, you will still get the early Reaper out, so there's not much that Classic is going to be able to do to stop that. The SCV should be able to finish this barracks as long as Byun micros it. Yep, okay, finishes the barracks, gets on out. So you will need Zealot to be produced, sorry, I cannot talk. You will need Zealot to be produced so that Classic can hold is just a little bit easier. Of course, the Zealot is not the surefire way to beat this. You will still need a Stalker or an Adept out to help stop this. As, oh my, no, it's yes, it's Proxy Stargate, isn't it? I mean, Warpgate does start though, but this has to be Proxy Stargate, I believe. It's not going to be like a super hard committal to Proxy Stargate, but it's going to be a fast Oracle, as I love this move from Classic. He knows you're not going to have any... No! The catch on the Reaper! That... Oh no. Wait, this is awful. Byun commits the barracks across the map. He loses the Reaper. And now he's going for a Hellion. He will actually, I think, scout out this Proxy Stargate with the floating barracks. But even that... You're not going to have anything. You're going to try and... He's going to have to, build a Widowmine second. And he's going to have to hope that Classic runs his Oracle over the Widowmine. And that's about it. This is already not the best start here for Byun. And Classic, look what he's doing. He's just taking full advantage of this. Wait, it's a Void Ray? No. No, Classic, you can't do a Void Ray. You went Warpgate. Okay. I mean, I'll explain this if we have the time, but if you have units moving across the maps, Classic... He's going to be going for the Void Ray. He's going to be pressuring the front as well. The Widowmine is already out, though. Some Marines are being produced. Bunker is out, but the Void Ray is going to be here. I mean, this is really slow. Usually you go the Stargate before the Warp Gate if you're going to do this cheese, because it's just that much faster, but that's not the case. Classic. No, he commits to it. And he's got a gold base behind this as well. As we are going to be seeing the supply depot go down. There is a Viking already out that's going to start to chip away at this Void Ray. Of course, Classic is not committing any more to this. He lost the probe. He doesn't want to commit shield batteries or anything more. He doesn't think that he's going to kill Byun. And that is a pretty good assumption to make. Byun was very, very ready for this. But, I mean, Classic just taking full advantage of the fact that he knows exactly how far ahead he is. And this gold base being taken is testament to that. Are we going to see a recall of probes? No, just immediately... The few extras going to be transferred over. as this Hellion actually has a really nice position here to scout out the gold base. And I actually think, can it hit? No way, it actually can hit, I believe, that topmost mineral patch. But Byun just going to go in with it, has had that Hellion sitting there the whole time. He's going to try and get some probe kills. Dives on in, probes haven't been moved just yet. It's only a single Hellion, so it can't get too much value, but already gets 2 probes. That's pretty darn worthwhile. A third is also going to go down before the Hellion falls, and that's absolutely worth it. That's Byun being able to get at least a little bit of probe damage on top of this. 3 probes for a single Hellion? Yeah, you will take that. As the second CC is finished here for Byun. He will be floating it out to his natural base location, but again, this gold base for Classic. The real question is it going to be up long enough that it will snowball the game for Classic, or can Byun fight back? I don't think Byun can fight back. Ooh, Widow Mine almost goes off, but because right now, Byun is being kept completely onto one base. He cannot expand, and Classic has a second base. He has a gold. There's nothing that Byun can really do right now as these Stalkers so close to scouting out that medevac. I do not think they saw it, though, as the blink up is going to come through. There is already a tank here, so Byun should be ready, but I really am worried for Byun. This is just not the position you want to be in on this game, especially on such a large map where it's so easy for the Protoss to just expand and continue to compound this lead. The tank is here. There's just a blink forward, and you don't have any units. That's, I mean, the CC getting focused down. The drop is going to find its way on into the main base. There is no shield battery, so this should actually get a lot of damage. That's a very good mine drag. You see all the low health SCVs as the command center is getting focused down. It's so low. The fight is just happening, though. Widow Mine shot is actually quite good, but the tank goes down. I think Classic might have just found enough damage. Another tank popping out, though. The CC stays alive, and behind this, a lot of probes going down, but not as much damage as Byun took across the map. Mind you, Classic is on 2 bases. Byun is on 1, and that's a blank forward. As soon as this tank falls, that should be it. I mean, Byun's getting damage, but it doesn't matter. GG. Classic gonna get one back. And you know, something that I've never noticed, if we get a shot of this Protoss Nexus pretty soon here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do the Protoss Nexi, as that is the plural of Nexus, all just have the little sim diamond over them? Like, look at it. That's... Tell me I'm wrong, chat. Tell me I'm wrong. But apparently that means that all the Protoss units, therefore by proxy, are actually all sims. I would assume baby ones, because no, you can control them though. So I guess maybe kid sims. I've never thought about that. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but it's absolutely true. Anyway, we're on to Hardwire. This is a map that I saw a lot of PvTs on a while ago, back when it was actually Byun and Maru playing on this map a lot. And I think generally it was actually a winning win rate for the Terran, usually on this map. Not sure why, but usually the Terran did just have a bit of an easier time closing out the games on this map. I don't know how that has changed. I'd actually love to, at one point, look up the actual map statistics for the race, the matchup per matchup win rates for all of these maps, because I do think that's a very interesting topic to get into when you're starting to look at it and looking at why. And I would love to know for this map especially. But we do have Concussive Shell on the way for Byun, so he is once again going to be going for these Concussive Shell Marauders, but probably into the 3 racks barracks. You know, just kind of the standard Byun opening. Actually, no, that's a factory. Are we gonna see Concussive Shell Hellions? Because that is a very fun build. It is a very, very fun build, and that looks like what it's gonna be. I mean, this is continued Marauder production, although the swap off does come through. So a second barracks will be built. So it's not going to be like a super hard committal to heavy pressure early on here for Byun. He will just move these units across the map, though. Again, 2 Marauders and a Marine, absolutely capable of killing any early Protoss unit that is not in the air. So anything but an Oracle or a Void Ray. Behind this, though, what is Byun doing? Well, he's going to be going up to 2 racks. We will see if a third is added on. It should be fairly shortly. No, just the 2. Okay. Awesome, awesome. This is an opening that Byun does do a little bit more. So sometimes it's 3 racks. Most of the time, he does just do the 2 racks with the factory into second barracks, into starport. And this build offers you actually a lot of early game, the ability to attack and put pressure on the map. As this Oracle is just going to harass a little bit. The Marauders are split. Actually, I don't even think the Oracle can get through that second Marauder with the energy that it has left. But this other Marauder is kind of forfeit. It's just going to run away. A big chunky boy trying to make his way downtown. He's walking fast. But you will see Stimpak coming on the way for Byun. So you're not going to have any concuss or any combat shields anytime soon. But you will have Hellion or Widow Mines. You will also have Medivacs. And this is actually a build that, again, it does offer you good protection early game against the Oracles. It gives you an option for still hitting a 445 mine drop, and you get out your tech for an early tank and a Viking. It's actually a really, really solid build. And so we're going to see how Byun is going to pilot it on this map. As we have the medevac moving out, it has been tagged, so the Adepts are actually just going to kind of walk underneath it and say, hello, we know where you are. Byun's going to have to get on out of there. Going to try and sneak around, but a Phoenix is out, and so this just makes his life a little bit harder. A singular Phoenix to deal with these drops. The Widow Mine should actually have to be dropped out, I think. I don't think Byun can save this, even with the Viking here. All right, there we go. Loses the medevac, which is, of course, annoying, but the Widow Mines are saved. All in all, it's no harm, no foul, but +1 is going to be started up. Stimpak is almost done here for Byun. He has his first tank in production, as well as that third barracks. Colossus, though, are already started here for Classic. And really what you want to see from Byun is an early third CC. He can really afford to do that if he would like. There we go, more units. A flurry of production as Byun presses all of his buttons for his units to start up. But we'll see what the timing attack is here for Byun. It potentially, most likely, is probably going to be the kind of 645. Ooh, very nice job. What am I going to get rid of the Oracle? But it's probably going to be the 645 +1. Kind of try and find an opening that Byun does with his Marines and Marauders and a few medevacs, where he has one army that's going to be pressuring the third base. And then another in 2 medevacs that's going to be trying to go into the main, trying to just distract the Protoss. And that's kind of a build that I think Byun really likes to do a lot. And here we go. We're going to see the first 2 medevacs move on out. It is not going to be a move out with other units at the same time, though. So it will just be these few. There's a lot of scouting information, though, for Classic. Like, look how much he just has on the map. There is Phoenix. There are a hallucinated Phoenix. Like, the Classic has so much vision right now that I don't know what is jealous of him, but like everything is jealous of him. A hawk, an eagle. You know, birds are looking at this and they're like, man, that's kind of unfair. How can you see that well? As Byun has put down his third CC. That has actually just finished up, so we will start on the Orbital Command Center, float that onto location. And right now, Byun just preparing for the next stage of this, and it's going to be a lot of tanks for Byun. Potentially a 4-tank move out, as he really hasn't been able to really push down the Protoss. He hasn't been able to get an attack, and yep, there we go. Tanks being unsieged as the 4th one is going to be finishing up, and he will be moving out. We'll see if this is just to protect the third base, if he's just going to be kind of setting up and continuing to just macro up and say, all right, I'm fine with playing into the late game, or if this is indeed going to be Byun pushing out, having this army move towards the third, take advantage of that really wide open space that you can siege up, and also have this small double drop on the side able to harass. It does look like it's going to be the former. Byun, not wanting to commit to any pressure, knows that Classic really has his defenses up and ready. 3 Colossus already available, +1 is on the way, additional gateways being added on. Robotics facility, a second actually being added on for double disruptor production, as the Forge and Twilight Council are going to finish up. The Snake Phoenix coming on in to scout here for Classic. It's +2 immediately started up for the Protoss. And actually the upgrades right now for Classic should be pretty far in the lead. He has the double forge already available. When you're just working off the single engineering bay for Byun, it's really not as efficient. The 4th CC is being built though. This will actually be lined up quite nicely with the 4th Nexus of his opponent. And we're just seeing both players right now macro up, get on into their late game armies, and that's a quadruple drop that's moving out for Byun. Classic's army is so out of position for this. I mean, even the Phoenix that is positioned there to scout is not going to see this until it decides to boost onto the main. At the same time, Byun's posture at the front. Is there going to be an immediate recall? Let's see. No, actually, Byun doesn't commit on in. Stalker in the Colossus, enough to dissuade him. Gets an EMP on the army at the front, but doesn't want to commit to a fight there. Classic just has a whole lot to work with. As an engineering bay is being added on. Armory as well, so you will get the 2-2 upgrades started up here for Byun. He's not going to be that far behind his opponent, but the real struggle is going to come when it's where Byun wants to try and find damage. As that's really not going to be allowed to happen. Byun is just continuing to posture around the map, not committing to anything just yet. +2 starts up, +1 ship weapons as well for the Vikings. As Classic has committed to a high Colossus count, not as many as last game. Not going to go up to 5 for that attack, as instead just going to be sticking onto the 3. As the 4th bases are now being established. 2nd starport being added on as you're getting up to the 8 racks. And Classic's going to look for this move out. It is a strong army. That is 7 Immortals. And I'm not exactly sure what the Immortals are going to deal with. I mean, obviously they can punch through the tanks. They are very, very beefy. As here we go, the collapse is going to come through. Byun, are you ready? The tanks aren't in position. The EMP, the first one's actually not that good, and his army is completely clumped up. So these Colossus are getting a lot of value. Finally, the Vikings are going to come through, but the Stalkers actually get the first few volleys out onto them. Byun's army supply is dropping rapidly, and the tanks not being here to support. The Colossus are starting to fall, but the whole ground army is now gone for Byun as he has to retreat. Tanks are going to siege, but they're going to go down, and Classic finds the attack. GG. We're going to game number 5. And once again, we are in a situation where we will potentially have a reverse sweep. And what is the chances that that happens 2 series in a row? I would tell you it's not very high. But hey, that's where we are right now, is in the bottom left-hand corner looking to complete his reverse sweep from Alpha X. It is Classic. In the last series, it was Alpha X getting reverse swept. Now, it is being turned on its head as Shopify Rebellion is on the ropes from said team. Micro Jackson himself has just been a little bit too greedy here with his builds, with his positioning, and he has been absolutely punished for it. It is Byun. And Glittering Ashes is an interesting map because not only is it the largest map in the map pool, but also it is a map that has a lot of ramps. If you're looking at it, almost every base that you can take on your side of the map has a ramp leading up to it. And so that means that this map is honestly very hard to attack onto, especially if your opponent is keeping tabs on you and is, being able to scout out your army movement is something that makes it very hard for you to push. And that's why you often see for Terran a lot of tanks. A lot of tank pushes, because that can often give you that extra ground that you need, using the vision from your medevacs to actually push up those ramps. Meanwhile, on the Protoss side, well, usually you're going to be looking for some flanks. You're going to be looking for wraparounds, because there are positions where you can kind of move around the map. You can get up onto the high ground, and so you'll often see players take advantage of that to try and fight on even grounds. It's Byun on the ropes, as I said, and he is going for the reactor opening here into the Double Reaper, so a bit of a different opening here from him. This is one that he does quite a lot, though, as... Okay, I was gonna say, you're not gonna put down a ninja base, are you, Classic? And he's not. He's just going to mine up some minerals, bring his probe on back home, and go about their merry day. But it's gonna be a 3 racks here from Byun. Same opening as always. No super greedy play from him just yet. And that's kind of where he's been getting caught out. And when I say greedy play, it's not that Byun isn't playing safe, because he has actually been playing very, very safe. But when I say greedy, what I do mean is that Byun, with his army positioning, he'll often have, 4 tanks at his third, and he's going to try and take a 4th, and then also take the fight with his army. And that's how he won game 2, is that he didn't just take the straight-up fight with his army. He pulled it back, lifted off the CC, and that was that. But he didn't do that in the last game, tried to contest it without the tanks, and that was really where the game was just ended. But we are going to see that it's going to be Phoenix out of Classic. Going to be going for the air superiority, the air dominance in this game, instead of going for an Oracle, which is interesting. Of course, on any large map, air units are going to be good, because they cut the rush distance down quite considerably. And so Phoenix, especially with how fast they are, when you're on a large map like this, even if it doesn't have a lot of dead airspace, and Glittering Ashes does not have a ton of dead airspace, there is some to the kind of up and down from the main bases, respectively. But other than that, the dead airspace is quite limited. And so, of course, that means that medevac drops are going to be completely eliminated by this Phoenix pressure. Byun can't really go for those without risking getting completely shut down. And as well, it does mean that Classic is going to have that option of harassing the mineral line, of getting some damage done, as we are going to see the move out here from Byun. There's already a shield battery on the way, though, so really, 16 Marines, it's a good amount, but don't know if it's going to be enough to really threaten what Classic has. As Immortal is in production, it's not done just yet, though. Stim is almost ready. Right in time for the 5. It's a little bit late, though. Usually it should be around 5 minutes, as that's the Phoenix going down, actually. That's a big pickoff for Byun. Stim pack is done, but I just don't think you want to commit on in here as Byun. It's just far too dangerous, as that's a really good force field, but the immediate snipe onto the sentry is very valuable. That's a lot of gas-intensive units that Classic has already lost. TVs are going to go down there to the Phoenix harass. And medevacs are now on the way. Concussive shell, combat shields being researched at the third base for Classic. And Byun, of course, is just continuing to try and build up this army for the next stage of his timing attack. Or the next stage of his attack, the next stage of his pressure and aggression. And we'll see if it's going to work out. And now, again, Byun, he won the first 2 games, looked so good. Was not able to win the last 2. Classic just seemed to have the correct read on the situation. No. The missile turret just in the right position to stop those Phoenix from committing on in. Apologies as I did have to yawn there. I'm not breathing enough. This is a problem that I always have. I feel like I talk about every stream, but Colossus are out on the map as this third finishes up. The second will be joining fairly shortly, and so Byun can't really commit on into that third, but what he can do is double drop on into the natural and start to get a lot of probe kills. Immediately the shield battery overcharges pop, but that's not really going to do a lot. The shield battery focused down, and now the probe focus fire going down. 10 already falling, and the pickup should come through as Byun then stims into the third. The whole army was brought over just to deal with that, as 17 probes in total are going to fall. And Byun is just being the most annoying Terran that he possibly can. As, what? The third goes GG. That's it. Byun wins it. The third base goes down.